Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Relevant Recruiter Show. Donnie Gupton here, and I've got a great guest. I'm really excited to interview Cheri Garcia. She's the founder of Cornbread Hustle, a big advocate of prison reform and second chances, and we've got a heck of a story here for you today. So, Cheri, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. What part of the country or world, I should say, are you in right now?
I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Beautiful. I was just out there a couple of weeks ago. How is Dallas for you?
I haven't even been outside yet today, but it looks pretty. It looks pretty outside. Out here in Texas, if it's weather you don't like, just wait. It'll change within 24 hours. So sometimes I never know what it's going to be. Freezing, burning hot, or tornado. It's always something.
That's awesome. Are you you have family out there? Are you born and raised in Dallas, or?
Yep, I'm pretty much born and raised out here. All of my family is out here, and I don't have any plans to leave. I love my hometown.
Awesome. You married, kids, anything like that?
No husband and no kids, just a couple of dogs.
There you go. For a couple fur babies then, huh?
That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I mean, this is a dangerous question. So, are you a Dallas Cowboys fan then?
It's dangerous only because it's embarrassing, but yes, I am.
25 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been that way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Niners fan, so I can't really like Dallas anything, but.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your story, and I know you started your Cornbread Hustle, and want to learn a little bit more about that. But how did you just get into the recruiting industry in general?
I never planned to be in recruiting. I still can't believe that I am. When I use the hashtags like hashtag staffing or hashtag recruiting, I still kind of laugh at myself because I feel like I don't know anything about the HR recruiting world. I just was forced into it. Basically, I kind of took a wrong turn at a very young age. I went from being on the honor roll and cheerleader and pitcher on the softball team, news anchor for the school, to trying meth and becoming a drug dealer just to fill my own habit. I was selling to some of the, as crazy as it sounds, the suburb moms, because meth is like Adderall. And if anybody who's been watching this has ever done Adderall, you get a lot done really fast, or you feel that way anyways. Like it works until it doesn't. So it did all the things that I wanted it to do for me at the time: lose weight, stay up late, move super quickly, and it was cheap, and it just did all the things that I wanted as a young female trying to be skinny on this cheerleading team and productive. So I ended up just destroying my life. The great thing about destroying your life at a young age is there's not much to destroy, and it's pretty easy to build back up. So I ended up not going through a 12-step program, not going to rehab or anything. I just got off my ass and decided to stop doing drugs because I just continuously was getting arrested. And thankfully, I wasn't getting arrested for the big things like driving around with meth in my car, which should have landed me in prison with a felony and a life sentence. But I was getting arrested for irresponsibility, not paying tickets, petty theft, stuff like that. My first arrest was when I was in high school. So I was always just getting into trouble because of negligence. But I ended up a couple of years after high school saying, okay, let me get back. Like, now I'm sober. Oh, yeah, that's right. I want to be a news anchor. So let me try to go after that. I skipped the whole college thing, and I just worked really hard to get into the news business. And I ended up working at CBS. And while I was working there, I kind of had this whole overachievement issue. And sometimes I still do, where I just wanted to pour into work and feel success so I could kind of mask my trauma. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, I was in high school, and on school nights I was going into the strip clubs to get buy or sell drugs. So obviously there was some trauma involved that happened throughout the whole, when you're running around the streets selling drugs and doing drugs at a young age as a pretty female, that you're obviously going to encounter some problems.
Yep.
So I just masked all of that and just poured into success and achievement. So while I was working in the newsroom, which was a job that I just can't believe that I even got that job not having a degree. Well, I believe it. I worked for 4 years trying to get my foot in the door, so I might as well. But I worked the overnight shift, and while I was working the overnight shift, I invented a product. It's called Luminous Envy. It was a tanning bed, and I worked with China. It was perfect because I was working the overnight shift and I could communicate with them. I got a prototype made. I got my patent. And I ended up getting it sold nationwide in retail stores. End up leaving the news business, going full-time entrepreneurship, running a PR firm, really honing in on my marketing and creative side. And this is like a few years later. So I got off meth in 2007, and then now we're looking towards like 2015. All through those years, I've only achieved success. Went on the Steve Harvey show twice, just did a whole bunch of stuff that just showed that, hey, everybody, I'm a badass. I'm not a loser anymore. And I ended up going into prisons and teaching entrepreneurship as a volunteer. And as I'm teaching entrepreneurship, you know, a couple of years go by and these guys start getting out and adding me as a friend on Facebook, and they needed help. They were wondering, how do I get this thing rolling? How do I start a business? And I was like, it's easy. And then I sat down and I saw that like they only had a Texas Department of Criminal Justice ID. They didn't even have a driver's license, an ankle monitor. Their parole officers telling them to get a job within 2 weeks. And they had $50 to their name and a bus pass. And I was like, wow, not a great foundation for starting a business. So let's kind of reverse engineer your big goal and start with an entry-level job. Well, Cheri, I'm a felon. I can't get a job. I was like, whatever. I was supposed to have a college degree, and I still got in the news business. It just takes a little creativity and sass.
Yep.
So I started calling different companies, and essentially I was selling these guys for free. I was just like, hey, so I have this guy here. Hear me out. He did just get out of prison. He spent 20 years for murder, but he's a nice murderer, nice one. So maybe we can just meet. I'll come and I'll do the interview with him. I'll come to Starbucks, whatever. And all of these guys got hired every single time, no questions asked, and ended up being great employees because they had that second chance. And I did it a lot. I kept placing people. And one morning I woke up and I was like, okay, well, that's great. I placed a whole bunch of people in jobs, but I kind of worked myself out of one because I spent all day and night with the passion of placing people in jobs to where I haven't even worked on my own company.
Right.
And that's when I realized what my passion was. And I said, okay, so how do I monetize this? Now, a lot of people were saying, hey, Cheri, you're trying to help felons, so you need to make this a nonprofit. And I was like, no, there's no way. It's just not in my nature. Entrepreneurship is like what I'm really good at. I'm not good at asking people for money. I'm just not. And I don't want to focus on that. So kudos to all the nonprofits that can do that. I just can't. And so I was like, okay, how do I monetize this? And I'm like Googling around, trying to figure it out. And I'm like, staffing agency. And I was blown away. I didn't even know, like, do people really, this is like legal human trafficking. Like, people really make money by just selling people that they find that have something that somebody wants. That's insane.
Yep.
So I had no idea. I never knew anything about staffing. The HR world, I didn't even know what HR stood for. I kid you not. I was like, what does HR even stand for? So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a staffing agency for second chances. And so many people, I started interviewing people who had that had staffing agencies and learning about them. That's how I got in the news business. I just stalked and harassed news reporters and would show up when they're doing their live report out on a crime scene. And I'd be like, just shadowing you, don't mind me. So I would just like ask a bunch of staffing agency owners a lot of different questions, and they'd look at me like I was crazy. Like, Cheri, this is a really hard business, and it's going to be really hard with what you're trying to do. And I was like, it's okay. I'm up for hard things. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was drunk. So remember, I got off meth in 2007, but I never said that I got in recovery.
Right.
I just overachieved and kept drinking like crazy. So let me go be a badass entrepreneur and then get drunk. Badass entrepreneur, get drunk. That was my days. So I look back and I'm thankful I was drunk, because I would have never started this business with a sober mind, because it has been quite the journey and it's really difficult. And if I didn't have a passion for this, I would have quit a long, long time ago. So that's what happened. I started the staffing agency for second chances, and now we have some really big clients. We have people working for us every day that's on our payroll and get paid every Friday. We pay workman's comp. We have insurance. We do it all. Like I know you laugh at that, but man, I mean, that workman's comp is really expensive. Yeah. And sometimes, man, there's been times that I've had to do marketing and PR and side gigs just to be able to pay it, because Cornbread Hustle, we're still at break even mode while we're doing really good. And it's the most revenue I've ever seen in my life for me as an entrepreneur. And it's the most scalable business I've ever had. It's the poorest I've ever been, but I'm really happy because my entrepreneurial ventures in the past, it was really me just being a solopreneur, making a ton of money, sitting at the bar behind my computer, drinking vodka and Red Bull and writing press releases. I'm so skilled in what I do when it comes to PR and marketing that I could bring in thousands of dollars a month just by writing creative stories or creating different videos and stuff for social media content. So this is the first time ever that I've had to be a real leader and have real employees that actually expect me to pay them. And it's scary, especially when those employees, they'll be mad if you don't pay them.
It's a whole nother level of responsibility. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I mean, that story is so inspiring. I mean, do you think that you know, talking about the journey, and I think that's what's great, is like your journey is your journey, and you've basically embraced it and turned it into such an opportunity. If we were to rewind, if you're not doing meth in high school, do you think you stumble across this and have a passion for prison reform and things like that?
I think about that all the time. I really do. First of all, if people are listening right now and being like, so is she still drunk? I'm not drunk anymore, everybody. 14 months sober. So
congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah. I saw that yesterday.
You know, being the founder of a staffing agency for second chances and getting arrested for a DWI is not a good look. So I had to figure it out. But anyways, sober now, business is going great. It helped me lead my employees so much better. And I just love God so much. But I always look back and I think, okay, when I was younger, I was always an entrepreneur. I do know that, because I remember being like 7 years old and I invented some kind of pancake syrup, and I went door to door trying to get my potential customers to try it and give me their feedback. And if they like it, I'll go bottle it up and bring it back to them and they can pay for it. So I definitely know entrepreneurship was always a thing. You know, I still haven't come out totally transparent about my story and how I stumbled into drug addiction, because I don't want to hurt other people that were involved. But I had a very close family member that got destroyed by addiction. And my ex-spouse, we had some addiction issues. My dad's dad hung himself and was an alcoholic. So I think I'm kind of like Helen Hunt on Twister, where she developed this whole passion for figuring out the science behind tornadoes, because it hurt her so badly because of how it took her family away from her. So I think regardless whether I got addicted to meth or drugs, I think I think it's God's purpose for me. I really do. Because I look back and I remember trying out for some Oprah show whenever I was barely I was barely graduated high school and just getting into like my news reporter wannabe lifestyle. And I remember dressing up as a homeless person for a day and interviewing a homeless guy and really doing like a little mini documentary about it. This is really before I ever knew anything about prison reform. So I really think that it was God's purpose for me. And I don't think I was supposed to get on drugs. I think I messed it up and slowed things down.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, one of the things that, is probably a gift that you give to others is the limiting belief. I'm a felon. I can't get a job. Mm-hmm. I'm a drug addict. I need a college degree. I need this for that. And in today's world, there just provides so many different paths for our own journey. And I'm sure that that's like has a massive, massive impact. And probably where you get your fuel is to teach these people that have made mistakes that, hey, there's opportunity out here for you. Is that how you kind of feel about it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be real with you. I bawled my eyes out this morning and was on my knees, like asking God, why do I have to go through so much? Because there's really behind closed doors, I really do deal with a lot. And there's a lot of times that I'm like, why don't I just go back to my easy life where I make thousands of dollars a month, pay my bills, have good credit, and not have employees. Even without the alcohol, I won't even drink. Like, I'll take that old life without the alcohol. But I get so many messages, a lot of them coming from LinkedIn, honestly. And they're business professionals that really, it's important for them that they remain completely confidential. But they are like big time business professionals that are secretly reaching out to me and saying, hey, just FYI, your DWI video you posted the other day, it really helped me because I got a DWI too, and it put me in a really dark place. And I'm just now a year into it and finally getting back on my feet with my confidence and feeling like it, because when you get a DWI as a professional, you start to feel like you're not worthy. Your skills don't mean anything anymore because you just feel so ashamed. And it's something you're hiding. You don't go to work. It's not like me where I can come into work the next day and be like, hey, everyone, got arrested, posted bail, I'm good. Like in my job, it'd be okay to do that. And everyone would be like, oh my God, you relapsed? Let's help you. But I get a lot of messages like that. One day I'm going to mark out everyone's name, of course, and make like a little slideshow of all the messages, not to show off how many people I'm helping, but to show all the people who are secretly suffering and what they're saying. Right. I have people reaching out saying, hey, when you got sober on Christmas Day, it really inspired me. It took me a while to really figure this thing out, but I just needed to reach out to you and say, because of you, I'm 30 days sober right now. Yeah. And so it's just really cool to see, like, it is hard, like being transparent, doing these podcasts, helping people come in. I got to go spend all day in prison on Friday. I spend a day in prison next week and the week after. It's not an easy path, and staffing is not fun. It really isn't. It's really, you're relying on people. Like you feel so out of control. And for me, whenever I was making all that money just writing press releases, I was in control. I'm writing the pitch and I know it's going to go somewhere. But whenever you're so out of control every morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, these guys better make it to work this morning and on time. And the problem is I take it so personal when they don't. Right. Because I feel like I really went out on a limb, Yeah. Like, dude, I helped you, so the reward is worth it, but days get really, really hard. Yeah, I can imagine. How much do you try to provide any training for them, or like, you've mentioned you haven't necessarily been through a 12-step program, but like,
and not everybody that's coming out of prison is necessarily addicted to something, but like, do you have any other things that you're trying to help groom these people into, you know, how to have a job? Because I mean, some of them probably have no idea even at all.
Yeah. So I did actually not an entire 14 months ago. So 5 months into my sobriety, I stumbled into a support group and got into 12-step, and I get therapy. So I got real help, and I had to start. The thing that's great about my recovery is I had no choice but to go through all the emotions. Think about it. I've been doing drugs and alcohol since I was like 13. So
Right.
I've never managed any type of real life feelings. So I had to go through managing my feelings and looking back at all the mistakes I've made and all these entrepreneurial ventures, because obviously I didn't have really great spending habits or management decisions as a drunk running these businesses. But because I had to start all over, get all new friends, get my mind right, I got my head like all the way into the Bible. My source is God now. We now are trying to rebuild a church and bring community together because of my personal need for transformation and to start over and community. It forced me to create an amazing environment for these people that I was not leading correctly. I started this agency nearly 4 years ago, and I was not, obviously I'm not leading people well if I was secretly drunk, motivating them, saying you can do it. Just don't drink if you're on parole, you know, like whatever. But I guess I forgot the question. What was something training in place. We do workshops. We do workshops on an ongoing basis. So and we do fun things. So we had rock climbing on Sunday. We were going to go to CrossFit yesterday, but we ended up not going. But we have Bible studies. We just have ongoing dinners, networking events, workshops. I also put on workshops for HR people because that's where it starts.
Right.
There's a lot of people just like me who aren't leading the way they could be leading because they have their own internal battles.
Right.
And we're so powerful. We are really creative. We're smart. We're go-getters, especially HR people or people in staffing. You have lives in your hands. Like, these are people who are looking to you to get that opportunity that's going to change their life. I mean, getting a new job is a milestone for somebody. It's a chapter in their life, and we're the leaders in front of that. And, you know, I've learned a lot about this field. It's just like PR people versus news reporters. It's a lot of toxic people, but I'm not saying that to like be funny or in a mean way. It's because we're really stressed out. We're overworked. We're spread so thin. We put other people before us all day, every day. We're people pleasing. Then we're being let down. Then we're blaming ourselves. Then we think we deserve it. And it's a vicious cycle. So there's a lot of HR people out there that are in staffing, recruiters that are silently suffering because they just don't know any better, and we don't have anyone to have these open conversations with. So
Right.
I have workshops where we have these vulnerable open conversations, and I'm not just trying to help. Sometimes felons, people coming out of prison, are like way more stable than we'll ever be, because they're grateful for the small little bit that they have, and they're hopeful. Right. Sometimes it's us. We're the toxic ones.
Yep. No, it makes a lot of sense. What would you say? I mean, you know, you're so open with your story, and I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and that was what motivated me to reach out to you. But how does your clients receive, you know, how authentic you are and how transparent you are about meth addiction, alcohol addiction, you know, and all of that? I mean, how do you see that? Because I know a lot of my clients that I work with, or anybody in general, they usually have fear of putting themselves out there, fear of that content. And well, if I put this piece out, you know, everybody's going to leave. I'm not going to have any customers. I mean, how do you overcome that? What are you kind of receiving from that?
So I was really scared twice in my life, right? I was really scared the first time I went on the Steve Harvey show and told the world, hey, everybody, I used to be addicted to meth. Now I'm not. That was even before I started Cornbread Hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in my family was up for that. Everyone was like, Cheri, you're a successful news person. You make really good money.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason to tell the world you used to be a drug addict when nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I kind of think it's my purpose and it will help some people, because meth, especially, not many people admit to being addicted to meth because it's such a shameful drug.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of meth, you think of no teeth and craters in your face. So I have so many Facebook friends that I used to obviously party with. Or that I had sold to or whatever. And now they're healthy today and they're doing good and have families, but they never reveal their past, because it's just, it just seems like a dirty, shameful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be the person to do that, to make other women who have overcome it just not feel alone, even if they're not ever going to tell anybody, just to know that, like, no, you're not a piece of crap. And you don't have to hold this secret as something that's so shameful. You can choose not to tell people, because people do judge you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, anytime somebody gets mad at me, they like think it's like some new insult I've never heard before. And they're like, crackhead. I'm like, wow, that's a new one. No one's ever called me that before.
Way to be creative. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, okay. The other day I got called a Bible thumper, and I was like, is that supposed to be an insult? Because trust me, I've been called much worse.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was scared then. It did nothing but bring me business and support. And the people who did, even if people did say, like, screw her, I don't want to be around her, I didn't know it anyway. And I don't want those people in my life regardless. So that was the first time. The second time, I did it again. I got that DWI. At Cornbread Hustle, our core values are EAT, which is empowerment, accountability, and transparency. And obviously, like, through the first year after getting arrested for the DWI, I was so depressed. And I even got to a suicidal point. I felt horrible. And I just, you know, nobody to this day probably would have ever found out or knew, unless somebody did a background check on me. But I could have never told anybody that I got a DWI. But because of our core values, I was willing, because for my own program that I'm working and trying to let the past be the past and live in recovery, I was willing to lose it all to just come out and be clean and say, here's the deal. Because I also felt like, had other successful entrepreneur women that looked like me came out about their alcoholism or what they were dealing with, or show the process, it would have made me feel like, okay, so I'm not, like, this isn't a secret problem I just have.
Yeah, you're not alone.
There were a lot of times that I would be like, well, do other people drink as much as me? Maybe. I mean, but I feel like I'm drinking too much, but do I know if I'm drinking too much? I just didn't know. I mean, I didn't know how it all worked. And I didn't have people in my news feed talking about their journey. Right. I saw people that would say 20 years ago when I got sober, and I was like, I cannot relate.
Right.
But just God spoke to me and said, share your journey now. I really, it was my goal. I was literally like 2 minutes sober, standing in the shower, washing my hair. And I was like, okay, when I'm a year sober, I'm going to tell everybody, look how much I changed and look how great I am. And by the way, I got sober. But God spoke to me at about 5 months sober and was like, you need to start telling people now so they can see the journey. Because, and I get it, because all those people that have messaged me, I mean, I don't know how many people it is, but it's a lot. All those people wouldn't be sober right now had I waited. So,
massive impact for you stepping into that. I mean, massive impact.
So the second time I was like, man, this one's really dangerous. I'm the freaking founder of a staffing agency for second chances. I'm about to go on LinkedIn and say, hi, everyone. So my name's Cheri. Got a DWI. Yeah, I know. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Oopsies. But let me tell you about what I've been doing since then. And I don't want, we're doing We're doing good revenue wise. I will just say that whenever I started coming out about my story, our bank account was negative, and it still goes negative sometimes. I'm not going to lie, because of cash flow issues,
Right.
but it was like negative with no business in sight. Now we're doing a lot of revenue with nationwide billion-dollar publicly traded companies, and our business has never grown so much. And I think the reason why it has, of course, everyone loves transparency, but the fear is, right, everyone loves to listen to you and see the potential train wreck.
Right.
But was it going to translate to real business? That was the scary part. And that's the thing. I wasn't even hoping to translate. I was just like,
Right.
let me get this off my chest, and other people might need to hear it. But it did. That's what happened. It translated, because I think HR people, number one, they secretly can relate. Every single HR person that reached out to me, their husband's an alcoholic, or their son, or whatever, their daughter or mom. Every single person that reached out, it's really because they saw me speaking about my truth and watching my transformation, and they can't help but to think, I'd like to see what her candidates look like then.
Right.
You know, maybe if I could hire a Cheri and get her, you know, for an entry level position, and maybe somebody like Cheri would be loyal and become a part of our company, why not? So even though I come out about all my dirt and I talk about what's going on, that transparency is so powerful, because as HR people and staffing recruiters, how many times a day do we hear excuses that we know are lies?
Yep.
All day, every day. And at Cornbread Hustle, literally my operations manager, who I'm always posting about, he came to me and told me, hey, I'm selling meth and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know many companies where somebody could go into the HR department and say, hey, so right now I'm kind of in this gang doing this, but I'd really like for you to give me a shot. They'd be like, what? Well, maybe it would work, right? Because it's so out there. We live in a world where we're like, okay, so what are your strengths and weaknesses? I don't know about any weaknesses. The only weakness I can think of is that I'm too perfect and sometimes I overachieve. Like, it's just so stupid. We start our interviews off with, what's the craziest drug you've ever done? And what's the most shameful thing that's ever happened to you? And how have you overcome it? Right? Like, when we ask questions like, when were you the most resourceful in prison? Give me a time that you solved a conflict that was happening. And we get to really see their real strengths and who they really are. And in turn, we get to place them in a job that they're going to stay at.
Right.
And we have less turnover and we make more money. And it's a win-win, because they're getting a second chance. The employer has an employee that's sticking around, and we're making money.
Yeah.
It's win-win-win.
Yeah. And I think, you know, for those that are listening, I mean, I think that's a huge point, is like, so much we're always afraid to, you know, when we're marketing and we're putting ourselves out there, we're trying to put the best version of ourselves always. And at some point, like, people start to figure out, like, yeah, none of us are really perfect. All of us have some, you know, I just did a post about, you know, a mask I was wearing for years, trying to be smart and intelligent and always right and this, that, and the other, and always tough and macho. And it's really not who I am at my core. Yeah, there's parts of me and things like that, but a lot of us, you know, we wear these masks that, you know, especially we wear this, you know, my LinkedIn mask and my Facebook mask and all these different ways of how I need to show up. And I think it's so important that you really start to actually get more traction when you are real, when you are, you know, sharing your losses and things that go on, because that's real life. That's what people are, they like that. It's amazing to hear that, like, when you put yourself out there like that, that it's actually not affecting you negatively. It's you're impacting people's lives, and, you know, as a result, you're also impacting your revenue.
Yes, it definitely has impacted our revenue for the better all the way. But it definitely wasn't the motive. I was ready to lose it all just by being transparent and coming out and sharing my story. I was ready to just be a blogger on addiction if I needed to be. I knew I'm an entrepreneur. I knew I'd make it, whatever I had to do. And if this wasn't the place for me, then I wasn't going to do it. But I've learned that it is God's company, and He carried me through all this. And one thing that I learned is, if you're really doing well, like, I can sit here and tell you our bank account still goes negative and we struggle and it's hard and I cried all morning this morning. You got to know if I'm saying all those things, but people are still wanting to do podcasts with me, and we're still going into the media, and we're still landing these nationwide accounts. It's because we've learned at Cornbread Hustle, we don't have to toot our own horn. Like, we'll talk about what we're going through, because there's so many people out there. Man, there's a lot of depressed people out there looking in their news feeds and seeing everyone's highlight reel. Look at me, we're awesome. Look at me, we're awesome. I feel more proud to post a status that says, hey, I was seriously depressed today. I'm addicted to toxic relationships and feeling sorry for myself, but I'm working on it. It inspires people so much, because they're like, oh, wow, I thought this girl like had it all and she's an entrepreneur and she seems like she's always on her game. I'd rather people see the real side of me. So whenever I do win, and when other people brag for us and the word gets around, the people know that it's not just about winning and they see the other side. I just want to inspire people. And I think we have it wrong as a society sometimes, that inspiration doesn't mean showing your wins. Inspiration is showing what it takes to keep going. Because if you just continue to put your highlight reel out there, everyone's just like, okay, well, she probably has daddy's money, or maybe she has a rich boyfriend, or they probably got an investment, or they probably got a grant, whatever. Like, instead, just be like, no, we're struggling and it's hard, but we do it because we love it and we're going to keep going. And it helps other people who are in the same position. All of our LinkedIn followers who may be sitting here with a negative bank account right now thinking, okay, well, cool. Like, it doesn't mean the end of the world and that you suck at business. It just means that you're trying to run a startup and you're doing the best that you can.
Right. No, it's so important. And I think that, kind of going back into what you're saying around, like, I always call it the dopamine rush, right? People typically are posting on social media for the likes, for the comments, for the result, right? And, I always, when I'm working with my clients, I'm always like, hey, just put it out there with no attachment. Share your story with no attachment, because that's usually when the results come, but when I'm trying to create some content to, well, I hope this motivates a client to book a call with me, or I hope this motivates a candidate to do X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is, like, it never results that way. So then you're beating yourself up on what it is, instead of just embracing, like, hey, this is the journey around, my content story. And I think it's so important. I was listening to the Kobe Bryant celebration of life the other night, and he had one of his quotes, what I love, which was, and I'll probably butcher it a little bit here, but, the dream is the journey, not the destination. And when you understand that, your dream will become bigger than anything you ever imagined.
That's true.
And it's so important just to, buy into this process. And for you, it's like you're using your, things that are a challenge to basically, change people's lives and change your business. I mean, it's really incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you kind of envision for your company now as you're, start continuing to grow? Like, what excites you most about it?
Oh, man. What honestly excites me most about my company right now is we have such a solid foundation of transparency. We really live our core values. This might be a silly answer, but what I'm most excited about is that we're happy with right where we're at, which is great, because my entire life, which is what actually fueled my addiction, I was never happy with what I had. I always wanted more. More clients, more money, more employees, more awards, more news publications.
That's exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah. So
that's exactly how I've always, been until recently, is just a constant pursuit of.
The most exciting thing for me is if we stay right where we're at right now, which is barely pay the rent, bring in revenue, pay all the employees, barely pay the rent, and I at least can eat some chicken and rice, then I'm happy. That's my most exciting part of it. But I will say that what it looks like we're moving towards, we have an abundance of blessings. So what it looks like we're moving towards is we do have a potential for hundreds of recs to come in, hundreds. So we're gearing up for that. We're about to hire another recruiter, looking to possibly even bringing in a third. We have this church that we're rebuilding. That's where we're doing all our workshops. So definitely having a place where people can come in and have just have that extra support. We are going to continue doing these workshops, and my goal is to build out a faith-based recovery co-working environment where we will office, where we do all our interviewing process and all that, and start an incubator where we're investing in the side hustles of these employees. Because remember, my first initial thing was to help these guys become entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So I have to keep my promise. We're getting to that 5-year mark where I said 5 years from now, we're going to really hone in on your real goal, but let's start with this job and get you in the right direction to getting some stability. So, just creating that co-working space, it'll be like, what's great about it is I'm real big on bringing together everybody from all walks of life where people can be vulnerable. I don't like having like, here's where all the people coming out of prison and people in recovery meet up and they talk about these topics, and here's where the HR people and entrepreneurs meet up, and here's what we're going to do for them. No, this is going to be a place that everybody can be themselves and just work on their businesses and be in a positive environment. Obviously, this is like millions of dollars that I'm talking about to build out, and employees and businesses and like the incubation and but there's a lot of things happening that I just can't be public about yet that I think is really going to help push this movement forward. That's what I see. I see the entire American Airlines Center, which it's kind of like it's where the Mavs play basketball. Right. I see that being completely filled of people from all around the nation coming in for a weekend conference that is just going to inspire people. So at the end of the day, it could all stop here, and we have our employees out making money, making a living, and I'm going to the office and hanging out with my employees all day, every day, and we barely make it. We break even. And I'm cool, but I know what's to come, and I'm going to keep going for it, and I believe in it.
No, I have no doubt that you'll achieve it. Just
Thank you.
Achieved everything else that you've gone after. So I think that's awesome. I love that vision. Just more impact for you.
I've never shared my real vision publicly, but I did it because I want you to save this video, and I hope that in a couple of years we can replay it and say, she freaking did it.
I have no doubt it'll happen.
They're really big dreams. They really are. But if you can believe it, you can achieve it.
For sure. Well, I think you've proved that, and even though it's kind of, you're joking, it is, corny things that we hear and say all the time, but it's that's the reality. I mean, it starts with, I can do this, and then doing it, going through that journey. So I love that. It's, this has been great. It's super inspiring. How can, the listeners, how can they reach out to you and get in touch? Is LinkedIn the best way for that?
No, to be honest. I'm like 1,500 messages behind. I just got a message from somebody from October that was like, are you ever going to respond to people in your network? I was like, I'm sorry. Cornbreadhustle.com, the contact submission form, that there's a lot less traffic going there. Okay. The only reason why I say that, so LinkedIn, you just got to imagine how many people are reaching out to confess, as weird as that sounds, like, hey, like just asking for guidance on sobriety and stuff. But if you really like have a real business inquiry or looking to hire people coming in out of prison, or need to contact us for any type of partnerships or collaborations, then our website would be much better, because I have so many messages on LinkedIn to filter through. And full transparency, I get so behind on those messages because I'm still early in my recovery, and sometimes my mental health can't handle some of the messages. Sometimes they're mean, and sometimes they're dark, and it's just very overwhelming. So
yeah, I can imagine.
I have to get real ready and take time and sit down and say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 6 hours on LinkedIn messages, and that's it today. No meetings, no anything. So
awesome. So cornbreadhustle.com then.
Cornbreadhustle.com. And I still get back to people on LinkedIn. It's just more of a delay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was able to get through.
It just depends. Sometimes
video, it's got to be creative. You got to be creative, right?
Oh, is that what you did? You sent me a video?
Yeah.
That's what did it. Because I was like, what's this guy? Well, I was scared, but I was like, let me see. What kind of video is this guy sending me? I was curious.
Yeah. Awesome. What's one piece of advice that you can leave our listeners? I know you've dropped a lot of value today, but what's one thing you can leave them with?
I would say, what is your why? And that, again, it sounds cliche, but like really not just a motivational speaker type thing. Like, what's your why? Like, really, what is your why? And if the job that you're at or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis isn't serving that in a positive way. So like if you say my why is my children, right? That's my why. Everything I do is for my children. But if you're at a job that's making you get so super stressed out, and then you come home at the end of the day and you're too tired for your kids, or you're getting drunk off wine and not being present with them, then you're really, your why is conflicted. For me, I have to think about my why all the time, and it's to help people get sober and find God. And I do that through my platform of Cornbread Hustle. So yeah, just your why, and start there. And then regardless if you have a negative bank account and you're shaking your fist at the sky and saying, why is this like this? Or if you're balling out of control and I remember I used to live in a penthouse and I was doing really well as a drunk, sad person. Sad people buy things. So I would say really sit down and take 30 present minutes to really figure out, like, what is my why? Like, even if you look great on the outside, only you can decide for yourself what you really want. And then if you go after it with that passion, then you're going to be successful, and the lows aren't going to be as bad. Like I said, I had a really, really, really super low this morning where I was bawling my head off, and you see that I'm still passionate and I'm fine and I'm moving forward and excited about the future. That's because I know my why, and I know where my source of energy comes from.
That's awesome. That's
finding
great.
that confidence will help you with anything.
Yep. Being able to deal with your emotions and things like that too is a big part of it, and feeling whatever the sadness or fear or anger that you had this morning, going through it and then stepping out of it is amazing.
Self-awareness, because sometimes you'll be crying and you'll be shaking your fist at the sky and being mad at whoever made you upset. But then if you take a minute to think about it and be self-aware and be like, I caused it. Like, I'm the one that caused it. I'm the toxic one in this situation.
Yep.
So when we start to, just like our core values, empowerment, accountability, and transparency, when we become accountable with ourselves and transparent, then that's where our empowerment comes from. We're totally empowered when we have both accountability and transparency, because nothing can stop you. Right. It's the lies that stop you. It's the self-sabotage behavior. It's the toxic relationships that stop you.
Yep. So good. So good. Well, awesome, Cheri. Thank you so much for coming on here with me today and sharing your story and your journey and just all the value that you brought. I really appreciate it. Love your transparency, and I can't wait to watch and see you fill up that American Airlines Arena.
I know. Now I really got to do it. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.